Welcome to Pour Painting with Ron. In today's video we're going to be doing a ring pour. As usual, if you like what you see today, please press the like button, and if you'd like to see more of my videos, please take a moment to subscribe. Thanks. Now, if you're new to the world of pour painting, you may be wondering what a ring pour is. Well, as with most techniques out there, there are a million variations on the idea. But the basic idea of a ring pour is to layer your paint in your cup or cups. But when you pour it out onto your canvas, you twirl the cup in little circle shapes to make rings in your paint. And then you stretch it out over your canvas. Now, I've got a few ring pours here that I've done to give you a bit of an idea of what they can look like. This one I used 2 cups on my canvas, and I created this ring pour. You can see the rings there that I achieved as I twirled my cup around in circles as I poured it onto the canvas. In this next one, I wanted a cloudy effect in my paint, and I'll show you how we got that in a moment. As you can see, I poured my paint here, and then I stretched it out over the canvas. I quite like this one. We're going to be making a similar one today. Now, the canvas I'm going to be using today to do my painting on is a 45 centimeter by 45 centimeter canvas with a thick edge, and I'm going to need approximately 800 grams of mixed paint. Now, as you know, I generally mix up more than I actually need, just to be on the safe side. So the paints I'm going to use today are Montmartre White. Now, like the last painting I showed you, I want quite a lot of white in this one. So my main colour is the white, and I'm going to mix it fairly thin. Now, I want a bit of a cloudy, soft effect to my painting. So I'm going to mix a few tablespoons of Deco Art Satin Enamel Pure White in with my paint. And that will create an interesting cloudy effect. Well, that's the plan anyway. You can see that in this painting that the white here has formed interesting looking cloudy shapes, and it all has a very soft look to it. Whereas the other one that I showed you doesn't have the satin enamel in it, and we don't have the same cloudy effect happening in the paint. So I'm going for the cloudy effect today, so I'm using the satin enamel. Now, the other colours I'm going to use are going to be all metallics today, and I'm using the Heraldo metallic paints that I got from Riot Art here in Australia. So I'm using metallic ocean blue, and another nice blue, metallic brilliant blue, and then metallic treasure, a nice gold colour, and metallic palm green. Now, the metallics in paintings need to be mixed thicker than you would normally mix any other colour. So as you'll see in a minute, my mix of metallics is quite thick as compared to the much thinner mix of the white. Okay, so let's get to it. So I've got my colours mixed up, and as I said before, we need about 800 grams of paint or so, although there is more than that here. Now, I mixed up about 300 grams of white, and as you can see, the consistency is fairly thin. If I do the little drizzle along the top, it stays about 2 to 3 seconds. And then I did about 130 grams of each of the colours. Now, I wanted these quite thick. The swirl stays 3 to 4 seconds. So I did start with a 1-to-1 ratio of paint and Floetrol, which is my pouring medium for today. But I did add a little bit more paint just to thicken it up a bit. So it was a bit less than 1-to-1 ratio. But as you can see, it's nice nice and thick and creamy. I find the Floetrol works really well for this technique. So I mixed all of those up the same. Now you see I've got some more white on this side. This is some very thin white I've mixed up without any of the enamel paint in it. Now you may be wondering what I'm going to use this for. Now ring pours often work better if you start with a bit of a base coat of paint underneath. It just allows the paint to slide better over the canvas without mixing too much. Now I could cover my whole canvas, but I'm just going to put a little puddle in the middle and pour my rings on that. And once I've got my rings, I'll put a bit of white around the outside edge. You'll see how that works in a bit. Now I'd like to use a cup to pour my paint out of, but I don't have a cup big enough. So today I'm using a measuring jug. It's a little bit wide for my liking, but it's all I've got. So we'll see how we go. Okay, now I'm going to start off with my green, and I'll just pour it down one side. So a bit of green. And I'm going to put a bit of white in between each layer just to stop the colours mixing too much. Otherwise I might end up just with lots of green and not much else. And then I'll do some blue. And a bit more white. And then some gold. A little bit more white. And then the darker blue. A little bit more white. I may not use all the white. It's better having too much than not enough. Some more green. A little bit of white. There. White. Gold. Looks quite pretty in the jar, doesn't it? I'll just keep going like this until all my colour is gone. Ooh, almost threw my white over. That wouldn't be good. I'll do one more layer. My dark blue. Some more white. Now, my last layer. There's a fly already. Ooh, I'll make these quite thick. blue. White. Gold. We have way too much paint here, but okay. Let's wipe my hands a bit. Always handy to have a cloth lying around. Okay, now I've taped the back of my canvas with my painter's tape and put in my big push pins so I can get my fingers underneath while I'm tilting it. Okay, I'll just put a little bit of white in the middle. Okay, now the idea is to keep the paint as close to the surface as you can. A bit hard with this, so I have to start fairly high, but I'll bring it closer as I go. Now you can make rings in the same direction all the time, or you can switch directions as you're pouring. That's up to you. So I might switch direction. Switch direction again. And I'll switch direction again. Okay, little circles in the middle. Oh. There we go. That's sort of in the middle. Now it's a good idea to let it sit for a bit if you want a bit of a cloudy looking pour, just to give the time for the paint to react a bit. Now this white I'm putting around the outside, most of it will get tipped off. It just allows my rings to slide over the paint. Get my palette knife. I probably have too much paint on the canvas, which is a bit of a pity, because often you chuck off the best parts if you have too much paint. So you don't want to leave too much on the canvas, and you need to be able to stretch it to get your rings showing nicely. You don't need a lot of white around the outside. Just enough for the paint to slide over. bit of a torch to get rid of air bubbles. We'll hope it turns out nice. I hope it hasn't gone too muddy in the middle. It looks quite nice around the outside. Okay, now I'm going to move the paint over to this side and then back to the other side. Back to the middle. And then I'm going to go up to the top. You see, the white lets the paint slide, otherwise the paint might roll over itself and get too muddy. Go to this end, back to the middle. The metallics will give it that nice shimmer. Now I'll go over to this corner. So you can see you lose quite a bit over the corners. Back to the middle. And then up to this corner. Back to the middle. You can see the rings are widening out. And you get a bit more of an idea what the finished painting is going to look like. I go this corner. Back to the middle. I bring it back to the middle every time. And then I go back to the corners. And then we go to this corner. And I'll bring it back to the middle. Okay, how's it looking? Okay, that's looking quite interesting. I like the colours up in this corner and down in this corner. A bit pale on this side, so I might just shove some more paint off that side and bring it back to the middle again, just to stretch everything out a bit more. Might bring it down to the corner. I have heaps of paint. I'll just bring it back. You don't have to have it exactly in the middle. I like having it a bit off center, just to give it an interesting look. Now, how is that looking? Okay, cool. I'm getting some interesting cloud effects happening. That will continue to develop over the next couple of minutes. But I think the overall look will be very pretty. I'll give it a bit of a torch. Torching just encourages things to happen in the paint. and also gets rid of the air bubbles. Don't bring it up too close though, because you may burn your paint. That's the last thing you want to do. Okay, how's it looking? I'm happy with that. I'll just go around the sides and make sure everything is covered. You don't want any white bits of canvas showing through on your corners or edges. Pick up some of this. When it dries, the metallics really come into their own. You don't really see the sparkle while the paint is wet. You really only see it once the paint dries. Those there. Now I did have too much paint. I have to make sure next time to mix up just a bit less, although I do tend to get a bit carried away, as you know. Okay, now I'm scraping the bottom edge of my canvas to get rid of the drips. The drips look a bit unsightly, but they also pull paint off your canvas. So it's a good idea to get rid of all the drippy bits down the side. Now, if I wouldn't have used the satin enamels, I wouldn't have had this soft looking finish to the painting. I would have seen the rings a lot more clearer. So if I'm doing a standard ring pour, I would probably use less white, more colour. I'd make the white a bit thicker, and I wouldn't put the satin enamel in it. But I was after this very soft look today, the soft, puffy, cloudy look. That's why I did what I did. Yes, I think it'll look very pretty once it's done. As you let it sit, the rings, the lines of colour become more obvious, and the clouds in the paint develop more. Okay. Now I think this painting is done. I'll just take my gloves off and then I'll bring you in for a closer look. Okay, so here we are, the finished painting. I'll bring you down for a closer look. As you can see, we've got these nice soft colours. And in between the white puffy bits, we have all those nice bands of colour. Not sure how the colours are showing up on the video, but they look really nice in real life. Well, that was fun. I hope you had as good a time watching me do the pour as I had doing it. I think it turned out really well. I'm really happy with this one today. If you didn't know much about ring pours already, I hope you've learnt something new today and that I've inspired you to give a ring pour a go yourself. So, until next time.